Hey, Inspire Tribe, how's it going? Welcome to another Inspired Conversation. My name is John Nolan, and today we're welcoming a very special guest all the way from Canada, the founder of the Anastasia Foundation, Gabriel Miguel. Thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, it's my pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Gabriel, the viewers of our channel, the Inspire channel, have heard quite a lot about Anastasia, about the Ringing Cedar
Okay,
books over the years.
interesting.
But today, for the first time, we have someone who is very, very familiar with the topic.
Hmm.
And I think you and I, like millions of other readers, share a similar experience, namely that once we have read those books, our lives began to change. And that
Absolutely.
is something that I cannot really say ever happened to me before or afterwards in the same way. Maybe you can
Wow.
share a little bit about your experience, how you discovered the books, and how your
Yeah.
journey with Anastasia began.
So I would agree with you. I'd say you're never the same after reading the books, but it's in the most positive way imaginable. And so what happened with me is everyone's story is so unique how they find the books. It's kind of God finds you in these interesting moments in your life, and he always comes at the right time. And I was in actually not the best place in my life. I was actually in a pretty kind of dark place when I found the books. And they came to me and I started reading and I just devoured the books. I mean, probably in like 2 weeks, I finished the first eight, and then the last one took me a little bit more time. But basically, I remember just my experience with the books was that I was reading the first book, and uh, probably about halfway through the book, I picked up the book and I just looked at it and I was like, I finally found this undistorted truth. I finally found something that is pure and clear, and there's no hiding of anything. Everything is being shared openly, and the truth is in here, and it's clear and it's pure and it's undistorted. I was amazed, and I was like, I'm going to dedicate my life to this. And I'm a pretty young guy. I'm only 27, and this was about 2014. So I don't know. Can't really do the math. What was I, 19 or something? And decided I'd dedicate my life to this. And I felt very close to Anastasia. She's here from the very beginning, and just decided I would spend my life doing this. So, um, I mean, I read the books, and I was, she says that the word choices that she chose are these combinations of words that she chose specifically to like resonate in the human soul in such a way that all this deep wisdom of the universe kind of unfolds within you. You read the words, and it's like you read, between the lines of the words, your soul starts to put together all this wisdom and it starts to come out of you. And the words are very healing to the soul. And they really picked me up. The books just picked me up and helped put me on a very good path and gave me all the values that I hold. It was just like it took everything that I kind of was and gave detail to it. I had already wanted to live on the land. I thought I'd buy a cabin in the woods at some point and like, do that kind of thing. But Anastasia gave me a much clearer picture on how to live. Maybe I'm going a little too forward right now. I
No,
hope.
no, 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 no. Speak from the heart. And this
Yeah,
is
yeah,
uh, what you said about, and she describes it, how she put the letters and the words together. And what is astonishing, the books were originally written in Russian,
right.
and she herself, Anastasia, lives in the taiga, in a Siberian taiga, which means that she's very secluded from the outside world. And as as we've read in the books, her probably the language she would use is also different from the everyday Russian. But
True.
then the book's been translated into many languages, and you and I read it in English. I also read it in German. But the
Interesting.
same thing happens.
Hmm.
And for those viewers who have not read the books or are not in touch with them, perhaps you can touch a little bit on what the main vision is that
Yeah.
she delivers or helps us find, and also that it's truly not any kind of religious movement or dogmatic movement in any way.
Not at all. Not at all. And that's such an important point to note is that what Anastasia shares in the books is not a religious or dogmatic thing. it is simply a culture. It's a way of life. It's a worldview, and it's universal. It's not for one particular nation. It's not for one particular people. There's no practices or sets of belief. It's a way of life. It's a culture, and it's a very beautiful one. And so the main themes of the books, from my perspective, is first and foremost, she lays out what man's relationship with God and creation is. And she shows so many different things in the books, but the main idea to me is that she talks about the true purpose of man and his interrelationship with nature, how we can find and be connected with God through nature, and conscious communication with the nature around us. And that, she talks a lot about that. She talks about raising children, creating happy families, and even more so, in her words, creating and preserving love in families forever. So the creation and preservation of love in a family, so that love never fades from the family and grows eternally. And so that the creation of happy families all over the planet where love doesn't die. And she shows the steps on how to achieve that. She talks about that. She talks about pretty much everything you could imagine, every topic, how the world runs.
I think what happens when you read the books, and to set the stage a little bit, or the setting, again, for people who have not read the books,
Sure.
the books are written from the perspective of Vladimir, who was a businessman that embarked on a trade mission into the remote areas of Russia,
Right.
and encounters two old men who eventually, through a series of events, lead him to Anastasia in the deeper spheres of the taiga. And he then has these amazing conversations and experiences, and she teaches him. And they have a child together, and later on 2 children together, but she teaches him. And I think the astonishing thing is, when you read the books, is that, as you said, there's such a profound, wholesome body of wisdom that she shares,
Absolutely.
that you couldn't possibly find in any one single person anywhere else in the world. I've never heard it.
Yeah.
And you can tell that this was not simply put together from different sources. This is
Sure.
an ongoing conversation. And I think this is the astonishing thing when you read the books, is the truth that you feel deep in your
Yeah.
heart, unlike any other book. But you have not just read the books and decided to live in a way that she presents as being probably, the prime origin of our real culture as man.
Yeah.
I think this is really the pinnacle of how man was
Agree.
supposed to live on Earth. You have
Right.
dedicated all of your life to it, like so many of us. But in your example, you've really gone a step further and created the Anastasia Foundation. Can you
Right.
talk a little bit about that, and what you do, and what your vision is?
Yeah, so the foundation is basically, so the books, as you were saying, have been translated into more than 20 languages. They've sold more than 30 million copies worldwide. The English-speaking readership has sold, I'm guesstimating, a couple million copies. That's factoring in the used book market. There's readers of these books all over the place. And in Russia, what happened was, when the books were published, they probably just maybe 2 or 3 years later, they created what's called the Anastasia Foundation, like Center for Culture, there in the city of Vladimir in Russia. And since 1999, they were the backbone of the movement. They helped connect all the readers. They provided news. They provided resources. They did events. They did all kinds of things to connect these readers and help them live the life that Anastasia describes, which I believe we'll get into a bit more here in a little bit. But basically, the books have been published for about 15, 16 years in English, and the movement has not really gone as far as it could have in that time. And when I got involved in it, I just saw that the communication between all the readers was just not really there at all. There was no centralized way for people to communicate and find each other. There wasn't anyone doing any events. There wasn't anybody doing any content, any news, providing any resources to the readers, education, getting funding for the acquisition of land, all these things. And so I just decided to step in and fill that void. That's what I felt was like my life purpose. So the purpose of the Anastasia Foundation is to connect and inspire all the English speaking Ringing Cedars readers across the entire planet. So we're doing all kinds of things. We do all the normal things, Facebook group, Telegram group, videos. We have built our own social media platform where Ringing Cedars readers can find and connect with each other. They can create their own groups. They can organize local meetups. They can do all kinds of things. We've done in-person events. We've had Vladimir Megré come speak at one of our events before. We talk with people from Russia who share their wisdom with the English-speaking audience. We translate that content. We do all kinds of stuff, and we're going to be doing a lot more. We're probably going to be publishing the books again in English, which is something that I'm working on, getting the copyrights and republishing them. And then we're doing all kinds of things. So that's the main goal of what we're doing.
So when you say the acquisition of land and which is really the focal point, Anastasia talks about the importance and that we have become a sufficient a dependent a dependent society that cannot really live free and really be free in our thoughts and our expressions in our minds as long as we're dependent on a system that has very nefarious intentions, if you will, as opposed
self-serving intentions,
very self-serving, as opposed to a true free being. So what is at the center, if you can talk about a little bit about what she suggests would be a way to be fully independent and self-sufficient and discover the true meaning and purpose of life?
Yeah. So the main, out of all the ideas of the books, the main one is an idea called a kin's domain. It's an individual piece of land. It's 2.5 acres, so 1 hectare of land, where a family comes and they say that I'm going to settle my family line here. I'm going to, have children on this land. I'm going to turn this little land into a little corner of paradise and then pass this land down to my children generationally. And then I'm going to do this in community with other people. So you have other families who have this inspired dream of creating a beautiful paradise for themselves and their children, and they come together and they all do that. And so what has happened, basically, the kin's domain is 2.5 acres of land. You fence it off with like a living fence of trees, a hedge and trees and all of this. And then 50 to 75% of that land becomes a forest. You would imagine it'd be some kind of orchard, nuts, other kinds of trees. Then you have your garden, you'll have a pond, you have a little space for animals inside of the forest. You can start to see how you can turn this into a beautiful flowering oasis. And each one of those is next to another one. So you begin creating kin's domain settlements. And so what has happened is in Russia, when the books were published, since the books were published, there's been almost like 500 of these settlements created from the numbers that I know, and the largest ones being more than like 300 families, 400 families. And so 400 families with 2.5 acres of land, and they've all turned it into this beautiful green paradise, and they're having children there. They're, growing all kinds of things. They are, the main thing, why is it called a kin's domain? It's the domain of your kin, of your family. And so you're coming to this place, you're saying, I'm going to create this beautiful space, this space of love, she calls it. I'm going to take the love that I feel in my heart, and with that inspiration, I'm going to plant a garden. I'm going to plant these trees. I'm going to build this house. I'm going to dig this pond. And I'm going to, that love that I was talking about, she's talking about the preservation of love gets, kind of preserved in the living things that you create with the trees and the bushes and everything and the flowers that are growing. It reflects this energy back to you, and it stays in that space, in that 2.5 acres. And then you have children there. And then when they're born there, They're saying, look at everything around me. My parents grew this for me. You know, every single tree here, every single flower here was planted thinking of me. And that child feels that love, and your family feels that love, and your husband, your wife, and everybody around you feels that in this space. And then you have this beautiful place for your family, and then you have 200 more next to you, people inspired, feeling the same way. And so now you've created another civilization. You've effectively created another culture, and violence doesn't exist there. You know, there's interpersonal problems. People argue. It happens. We're human. We're getting over it. But, you know, people aren't addicted to drugs. There's no homelessness. Everyone is supported by their community. They're educating their own children. And in Russia, like there's, you know, 500 of these alone just there. But forget about, you know, the rest of the countries surrounding Russia, the former Soviet Union, Belarus, Ukraine, all of these places. And then in Europe, it's spreading too. And, you know, all over Europe, it's spreading. And so what we're trying to do is do this here in America, you know, connect the, you know, tens of thousands, potentially hundreds of thousands of people who've read these books and help organize the creation of these kins domains, individual for each family, but then the settlements. So that way we can build a beautiful world. And the main goal is that eventually the whole planet gets covered in kins domains, you know, and we've taken the earth from a polluted place where violence and all these other sad, unfortunate conditions exist, and we've turned it into a pristine, flourishing garden where all the families are happy and everybody feels love and they feel connected to the creator. And the beautiful thing, you know, is that why 2.5 acres, right? Why not 3? Why not 5? The idea is that 2.5 acres is the perfect size of land where a human can directly interact with each of the things growing on that piece of land. And so through that communication, through that loving communication with the nature around you, you begin to communicate with the thoughts of God, the one who created all this nature. And you start to become one with the creation, and you start to understand the creation, and you feel that unity with all life. Like on one of we do this thing called the Russia-America Exchange. This is where we talk with people who live in Russia, who are creating kins domains, or people who are founders of settlements. And we talk with them and we ask them questions. They share their wisdom with us, like, you know, 20 years of experience or something. And one of the women there, a good friend, Svetlana, hi if you're watching this, but she said she just moved from Canada to Russia. She's Russian originally, and she decided to join a settlement there and build her kins domain there. She has her young son with her. And she said, probably like 1 month into her being there, that her little like 5-year-old son came running up to her. He said, "Mom, I don't know why, but I just feel so happy. I feel like I'm one with everything. You know, I feel like everything around me, I'm one with everything, and I'm so happy, and I can't explain why. Like, why is this happening? You know?" And she was saying that she wants everybody to have that experience. You know, a lot of the Russians that I've spoken with have spoken of that kind of experience. And so the kins domain is, you know, the solution to all world crisis. It's the solution to, you know, pretty much every problem we face: economic, social, spiritual, and it's getting back to the pristine kind of state that we were created to live in by the Creator.
And when you say it is the solution, what is important for those of you who are now really getting inspired to read the books is that there are very practical, tangible explanations as to how and why the kins domains and the settlements are and will be and present the solution. So what is so important, as opposed to many others, quote unquote spiritual books, is that this is really a tangible, practical way that is described step by step. And people might say, well, yeah, what's the difference in having a farm or having a kins domain? It is a very, very different approach. We look at farming as this thing that has developed over the last few hundred years that is very disconnected from the true purpose of communication of man and nature. Whereas Anastasia in the books really
extracting from the land.
Exactly, and where she really goes in depth about how the communication with nature is supposed to be and how it was intended to be, and how beneficial nature, when you are in this communication, really is to man, and in what
Truly.
ways. And so, how you plant your gardens, how you set up your kin's domain, as you said, the proportions,
Yeah.
all of this has significance and importance, of which she goes in depth in the books and really describes this into detail. So it's not just an inspiration, it's also a blueprint. The books are also
Yeah.
a blueprint, a true blueprint, which these 9 books, 10, probably a
10.
10th book that,
There's 10, yeah.
yeah, 10 books, yeah,
Mhm.
are truly a blueprint. And also, what has happened in Russia, and I'm not sure, you probably are familiar with this, is
I've been to Russia. I've
that
visited.
um, the families and the communities have began to communicate with the government,
Hmm.
to petition the government to create new laws that would allow everyone, every family, to receive this 2.5 acres, so 1 hectare. And I want to touch on that because this is always a little
Sure.
bit of a bumpy step in the process where people say, well, isn't that socialism or communism? No,
Not at
because
all.
the idea here is not to allow the people to use the land, which is really a distinction. It is the land, the ownership of the land goes to the family
Mhm.
that settles on the land and that lives on the land. And so, actually, there have been some laws passed, and I think in parts
Okay.
of Russia, you can now, as a Russian citizen, as far as I'm informed, you can now receive a piece of land
That's
um,
true.
under certain conditions. Can you speak a little bit about that, or is there any kind of idea movement forming in North America to accomplish something similar?
Yeah. So that there's a lot there. I want to touch on one of the things that you said before about this Kin's domain idea being a blueprint, and then I'll get to the what's happening in Russia. And so, what Anastasia lays out about the Kin's domain, it's very practical. It's probably the most practical thing that you'll ever see. It's just that it encompasses so many different aspects of human existence. You know, the social, the spiritual, the economic, and it's very practical, everything that she lays out there. So um, there's a little quote that I wanted to read. Vladimir, in the books, he says, "Let each one of us take a small plot of his land, pull his whole mind and whole spirituality together, and create a very small but concrete paradise. He will transform his little piece of land on our large planet into a flourishing garden, giving a material embodiment to his spirituality, following God's example. If millions of people do this in a whole lot of countries, then the whole earth will become a flourishing garden. A father and mother who are actually creating a space of love for their children are more spiritual than the most celebrated wise men who only talk about spirituality. Let the spirit of each man spring up from the ground as a beautiful flower, a tree with fragrant fruit, and let this take place on every single hectare of our planet." And I feel like that quote really encompasses what we're talking about here with the Kins domain, is that it says here, you give a material embodiment to your spirituality. It's a material spirituality. It is, I feel love and inspiration in my heart. I feel joy in my heart. I am inspired. I create this beautiful space around me. The space grows forever, eternally, and my family lives here. And now we've secured, you know, if you want to get practical, you can make money off of it and you can live an incredibly abundant life. You can have a wonderful social environment for your children to grow up in. Everybody around you is inspired with the same dream. The culture is beautiful. Um, so there's all these things. It's very practical, but very spiritual at the same time. And so just wanted to touch on that. And so what's happening in Russia is that they passed a law called the Far East Hectare Act, which is basically they've started giving out land in the Russian Far East, 2.5 acres. I believe it's for lifetime use, no strings attached. I think the only condition is that if you don't use the land within 5 years, they take it back.
Mhm.
And which makes sense, right? It's not like, you know, some weird communism kind of thing. And then actually in So the Far East isn't that appealing because it's very cold and the conditions there are more rough and it's much more rural. But there's a region, like in the equivalent of a state, called Belgorod, where they have the law on kins domains in Belgorod. And so it's the only state in Russia so far that has one of these laws specifically for giving out land for kins domains, but it's thriving there. One of the people, well, one of the groups who was supposed to come to our Russia-America exchange, but then their power went out. They are founders of a settlement there, a young couple, probably not too much older than me, and they received land, a big piece of land, a couple hundred acres for their settlement there, and they also receive a lot of people in Russia, not just in this region, get grants from the government to start businesses on their kins domain settlement. Because they usually build these settlements not too far away from like a town or something, and it's positive economic activity for the local municipality. They love that. It creates tourism, it's creating jobs, it's creating financial security. So they're funding it, and they're funding it with no strings attached. It's like, hey, you get this grant, you build your little business, and that's it. And so the conditions are different in America. What's interesting is that we have this history of the Homestead Act, and there's a lot of controversy around that. But you could say a lot of America was built, in the late 1800s because of the Homestead Act. The government was giving out land, people developed this land, secured some.
It was actually the original thing that the original Republican Party ran on.
Yep.
Was exactly that idea. Yeah,
the Homestead Act. Yeah, and it created a huge amount of security and self-sufficiency for the early stages of the nation. And so you can say this land was taken from the Native Americans. I'm not going to ignore that part too, and everything involved there. But it's the principle of having land for your family and that kind of thing. But so far, there isn't any laws that exist, you would imagine, for kins domains in the United States. But there is something, I don't know how deep in the political rabbit hole we can go here, but there isn't a thing called a land patent. I'm not sure if you or your...
Go as deep as you want to.
Let's go as deep as we want. Okay. So a land patent would allow you, so when you buy a piece of land, this might be a very interesting thing to you, whatever kind of deed you get, like warranty deed or whatever, quitclaim deed.
I'm glad you're touching on that, actually.
Yeah, you are listed on that deed as a tenant of the land, and you actually don't have true supreme title to that land. And so that's why that land can, the government can pull eminent domain on you, or some other oil corporation can come and say, we're drilling on this land. And
that's also why you pay rent every year.
That's why you pay rent. Yeah, you're paying rent and,
and property taxes.
Yeah, exactly. The property taxes, the government is extorting money from you. You think you own your land, you don't. It's unfortunate. And due to the loss of legal memory in our country and the restructuring of the education system and all these things, this is something that they do not want you to know, that a land patent exists. But what a land patent is in the 1800s, the government was, giving out these things called land patents. They had a whole office in the government set up for the distribution of land patents. They gave them out for many decades, from the early 1800s to late 1800s. And a land patent is, you've patented your land. It's the supreme title to a piece of land. It is, you are the sole owner. No one else has any jurisdiction over this land, no claim to this land, any form whatsoever. And you own the land forever. It's completely yours forever to do whatever you want. You don't have to listen to zoning laws. You can build whatever you want on there, subdivide it however way you want. No permits, no nothing. You don't have to pay property taxes because your land is no longer in the jurisdiction of the corporate United States government. It's in a different jurisdiction and it's yours and no one can touch it or take it away from you. If somebody came on your piece of land who's from the United States government and they weren't invited, you could charge them for trespassing and they could go to jail. So if a police officer just decided to walk up on your land and you had a land patent, he'd be violating, he's trespassing, and he's going to jail. And it's a big thing. So this allows you to own your land and use it in whatever way that you would like, getting a land patent. There's, some steps involved. I'm
Hmm.
not qualified to speak on it. There's other people like Ron Gibson. If you look up a man named Ron Gibson, he has a couple videos here on YouTube. You can find out more. There's a guy named Nate Verellen. He wrote a book about land patents. So did Ron Gibson. There's an amazing group of people called the American Meeting Group, who I happen to be very good friends with, and they put out a lot of great information about this. So I suggest if you want to learn more, go that way. But so to the development of Kins domain settlements, my view is people are worried about the security of their land. They're saying, I'm gonna buy this land. What's gonna happen if they decide to build something next to me, or they want to take my land, or whatever. You get a land patent and you can be free, just to simplify it.
Hmm.
Right.
Well, this is this I've known about this for many, many years, and this is obviously outside of the parameters of the corporate system that we all know. So
Definitely.
this moves into common law and moves into the
This is the Republic. Actually, the land patent is issued under the jurisdiction of the constitutional Republic government, which is,
boy, can we open a can of worms?
we can open the cans. And if you guys don't think that this is true or you're skeptical, let me tell you that the case history, the case law for land patents is extremely strong. So if you want to look this stuff up yourself,
It's
they use it in the mining industry, the railroad industry. In order to have rights to the minerals in the land, you need a land patent, because it gives you the rights to the minerals below, gives you the right to the water and the air above. So it's very strong, guys. So you can check this out.
which is actually amazing that you put this on a record here. But at the same time, this is basically for the current system, the prevalent system. This is a workaround, right? This is a
Yeah.
workaround to have. But what we really want to long term establish is this understanding that we're literally the only species that does not have a dedicated space to live on. Every other species on the planet has that. We're the only species that doesn't and has to work and pay and continue to pay and slave for it. And so
And make a living, as they say. It's the
exactly.
most backwards phrase of all time.
And so what I believe is important is, and this what Anastasia says a lot of times, is
Yeah.
the understanding that this is truly our land, all of our land, and that this act of acquiring, purchasing land is really a very already very distorted way of doing this. This was never how this was intended to be. So we are obviously not going to jump from here to the solution in one step. But I think it's important. And if you look at North America, we have a lot of states with undeveloped land that would be favorable to use. So this is something for all of you who might have read or will read the books in the future, is something to think about, that there can be agreements with local governments. There can be ideas that are, this is a very much a infusion of ideas. And there's something interesting that happened all around Russia and the ex-Soviet countries, is that while naturally there was a lot of opposition from the dark forces that came out and of course fought this idea, there was a lot of inspiration within government officials, a lot of inspiration within government bodies, that it's such a strong light that ignites inside of you that people couldn't fight it. And so that's why, like you said, in many countries there are some smaller and some greater victories. But I think what is important at this point is that people begin by reading the books.
Yeah.
People begin by, and you touched on something. I know this has been challenging for people to get the books, especially if you are on a budget, because in the used books section, they're very expensive. Do you see a solution other than reading them in the PDF online, which isn't really,
Not ideal.
It's not ideal. Is there a solution coming up for this, or what is the current best way to get to the books?
I mean, so you definitely want to have the books in print. And as you said, when I got into it in 2014, I was blessed enough to get the first couple of books for like $4 on eBay. That's a dream now. You look up the used price and they're like 30, $40. And it's because they're out of print. And it's unfortunate. I believe it's a disservice to the world for these books to not be in print. And so our foundation is going to work on securing the copyrights, retranslating them, and republishing them. But until that happens, there isn't really a super good way of getting them. The original publisher on ringingcedars.com still sells the books as a set, which as a set, it winds up being a pretty decent price. It's like $180 for like 9 books, which is, you know, you do the math, it's not too bad. But yeah, I mean, it's you know, it's unfortunate that the books aren't in print right now, but hopefully we can solve that problem soon.
I just want to say to all of the Inspired Tribe, to all viewers, this is literally the best investment of your life. I can
You
honestly
will not
say.
hesitate. I mean, like,
If you're gonna forego your vacation for this year, it's totally fine, because you're gonna get um, something so valuable. And it is not that the books and the paper is so valuable. It's this feeling and this inspiration that you will receive. Gabriel, tell us, how do people get in touch with you, with the foundation? How can they support what you're doing, learn more, connect? What is the best way to do that?
yeah, so if you just go to anastasia.foundation, that's our website. You'll see everything that we're doing there. If you want to join the community, if you've already read the Ringing Cedars books, there's a page called Start Here. You can see all the different things that we've got going on. You can join, sign up for our email list. You know, we do everything for free. If you guys want to donate and support what we're doing, there's a donation page there. I'd be more than grateful for your support. But everything we do is for free. And I don't want to charge anybody for anything. So we do a lot, and we do it all for free, and it's a joy.
So everybody, please go check it out, and please connect, talk to each other. This is something that we always say on the Inspire channel: connect with each other. There's a great power in sharing ideas, wisdom, visions, and talk about the books and your experience, what happens inside of you, and also take small but important steps. Inspired action, also something very important. Gabriel Miguel, we'd love to have you back. Definitely talk more about it. Share updates.
This is wonderful, John.
This is going to be a focal point for us on the Inspired channel moving forward, even more.
Beautiful.
To familiarize people with the books, to help, to connect, invest, whatever we can do. So thank you so much for taking the time today. Thank you for everything you do. Thank you for expanding this vision here in North America. It's so valuable, so inspiring, and I look forward to more conversations and more co-creation.
Thank you so much, John. It's a pleasure. It's a joy. I mean, we've been doing this since 2014, and you know, we're the only group doing it, and at this scale, and even internationally. So if you want to find other Ringing Cedars readers, if you're into these ideas, our community is the place to join. And it's a wonderful, supportive place, full of the smartest, most inspired people you'd imagine. So educated, so beautiful people. You'll meet your friends. You'll meet everybody you want to meet through here. So, you know, go read the books, go check it out. And there's so much more I could say, but I look forward to coming back and to sharing space with you here again. And thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Gabriel, the Anastasia Foundation. And we'll talk to you soon, Inspired Tribe. Thank you so much for watching. We'll see you soon, and have a wonderful, blessed, and inspired rest of your day.